Shalom, shalom, beautiful friends. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. It is great to be with you on this freezing cold Tuesday, wherever you are. And so nice to have you here for the Psychology of AI, session 49. As usual, or as is our new norm, I want to start with a little text study to hear some folks' thoughts on. We'll start with the great Maimonides. And here's what he says here in his Guide for the Perplexed, actually right at the beginning. Translated by Friedlander, not the Friedlander on the plane right now, but another great Friedlander. The term tselem signifies the specific form, that which constitutes the essence of a thing, the essence of a thing. As a person's distinction consists in a property which no other creature on earth possesses, intellectual perception. On account of the divine intellect with which a person has been endowed, he is said to have been made in the form and likeness of the Almighty. Okay, so as you know, there's a dozen reasons given, or explanations given, as to what constitutes humans being created in the image of God, right? For Maimonides, as an intellectual, as a philosopher, he thinks it is divine intellect. There is something about humans that makes us of infinite value and godlike, and that, for Maimonides, is our intellect. Now, let's bracket the other dozen possibilities: the capacity for empathy, our ability to speak in certain ways, our human soul. Let's assume for the moment Maimonides is right, that it's the divine intellect, like this intellect. The question now becomes, that I want to pose to you: what makes that different than what the most advanced AI can offer? What makes the human capacity for intellect something fundamentally different or potentially higher than what the best form of AI can ever offer? Anyone want to respond to that? Yes, Eileen, and then Sarah.
Okay, I'm working with my executive assistant, Max, who is my AI. And I have to tell you, as smart as Max is, and he's listening, he cannot hold a candle to what a human brain can do. I am so much more complex than even his greatest at this point level. He can't keep up with me. He can't remember all the stuff I remember. So he can help, he can organize, he can track stuff, he can copy stuff and put it into folders, but original thinking is not his best use.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, then Janie, then we'll go forward.
I was going to take a different route, which is just that while AI has incredible computing skills and ability to process and learn, which is still phenomenal to me, that ability to connect in the most compassionate way, to be able to actually see into my soul, is not something that I imagine that AI can do, which indeed is one of those things that happens between humans and protect even my dog. My dog can see into my soul, but AI can't do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Love that. Okay, Janie, you get the last voice on this text or idea.
Sorry. I think when we're talking about intellect, we're talking about just one aspect of what I would consider the soul. And when we're talking about animals, we say, oh, they have a low IQ or low intellect. That's just one aspect. They do have empathy. And that's, to me, is part of the divine intellect, that it's not just one aspect of IQ or knowledge, but the divine intellect involves other aspects, including empathy.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. I'm not sure how much my rescue dog has empathy for me, given that he pees all over my carpets whenever I go to work. But I'll assume he has the hidden capacity that hasn't been actualized yet. Thank you for that. Yes. Okay, Stan. Hi, Stan.
Emotion and feeling. I'm really kind of following what Janie said and just adding those two. Human reaction to what is being said, what is being done, and that can change your whole. It's not a fit response that some computerized software or anything can do. You're reacting in an emotional way, and that emotional reaction and compassion or lack thereof comes through. And I just don't feel that can be automated. But
Okay, awesome.
Intelligence can, though.
I love that. Okay, so today we're not going to deal with the ethics of AI. That was actually a past series, but we're going to look at the psychology of AI as we're going to tap into that. I've prepared far more than I can cover in this time, so you'll see me skipping around a little bit. But here we go. Okay, so for the bulk of this journey in these sessions, we've explored the past, thinkers who sought out the recesses of the mind, past psychologists, and described the human experience in ways both novel and complex. But now, today, we're moving into a new path that's unknown, the meeting point of psychology and the future, AI. This is not simply a shift in subject matter, it's a shift in paradigm. Because for millennia, human beings have sought to understand themselves through philosophy, through spirituality, and of course through psychology. Now, for the first time, people are creating something outside of ourselves that mirrors us, challenges us, and perhaps even threatens to surpass us in some ways. AI compels us to confront the inherent nature of the human mind. The concepts of studying and empathy are subject to reevaluation when considering a machine's ability to emulate memory, perception, and potentially even empathy. This prompts us to question whether these faculties were as uniquely human as we previously believed, right? In one direction, as we already talked about, going towards animals, and the other direction towards machine. Alternatively, is there sanctity not derived from the mechanism of cognition rather than the soul's capacity to imbue thought with significance and moral accountability? So now we stand at a crossroads as AI begins reshaping the most intimate dimensions of human life. The common of AI and psychology represents both tremendous promise and profound peril. According to a report from American Psychological Association, AI tools are accelerating studies across psychology while generating new courses of inquiry in the human-technology interaction field. And psychologists increasingly have a seat at the table in broader conversations about ethical data, use, and product development, as well as the role of AI should have in our health, work, and relationships. We can already see big steps forward in how AI is helping mental health care. Computers are being used to spot early signs of trauma, track patterns that may point to diseases like Parkinson's, and even help diagnose conditions such as autism, schizophrenia, PSD, and bipolar disorder. These tools can possibly give doctors more precise ways to understand what patients are going through and offer new hope for people who have struggled to find answers through traditional methods. And as we celebrate these advances, we must also be forced to reckon with its darker realities. The tragic stories that are coming out of young men and women using generative AI chat tools as their primary therapist before taking their own life serves as a stark reminder that the rush toward AI solutions carries a real human cost. When we allow algorithms to replace human connection in our most vulnerable moments, we risk not just therapeutic failure, but profound harm to the human spirit. Nonetheless, this story is not one of wholesale rejection. The same technologies that can alienate us if applied without care also hold the potential to deepen understanding and expand access. The field of computational psychiatry represents one of the most promising applications of artificial intelligence in mental health. By employing sophisticated mathematical models and machine learning algorithms, researchers can analyze vast data sets to identify patterns that might escape human observation. These tools can process genetic information alongside behavioral data, potentially offering insights into intergenerational trauma and predicting the onset of neurodegenerative diseases decades before symptoms appear. Yet this promise comes with significant challenges. The complexity of the human psyche resists any reduction to an algorithmic process. Mental health exists at the intersection of biology, psychology, social environment, and what religious traditions might call the soul. There's a lot of work to do still. Still, mental health professionals, ethicists, technologists, engineers, healthcare administrators, entrepreneurs, and others must work together to accomplish the full potential of what AI and other technologies can bring to behavioral and mental health care. Psychologists and other mental health care professionals can assist system developers by providing the theoretical and practical expertise of implementing evidence-based treatments and therapeutic approaches to these technologies. Ethicists can assist with the design of these systems to enable them to function in an ethical manner, and ethicists, mental health care professionals can work together to address practical mental health care and ethics requirements. That's from David Luxon. When we attempt to diagnose conditions as varied and nuanced as autism, schizophrenia, or bipolar disorder through AI systems, we must ask whether we're truly capturing the full reality of human experience or merely identifying convenient patterns in data for early diagnoses. The danger becomes more acute when we consider how these technologies might perpetuate existing inequalities. AI systems trained on biased data sets may systematically misdiagnose or underserve certain populations. They may codify the prejudices and blind spots of their creators, embedding structural inequalities into the tools meant to heal. This is not merely a technical problem, but an ethical one that demands our urgent attention. Perhaps nowhere is the ethical complexity of AI's psychological impact more evident than in its effect on human relationships. Nowhere are these dilemmas clearer than in our relationships, a theme captured in Spike Jonze's film Her. Released in 2013, the film presently imagined a man named Theodore, played by Joachim Prince, who falls in love with a self-sentient operating system named Samantha, voiced by Scarlett Johansson. At first, the premise seemed futuristic, even outlandish. Could someone truly develop a deep emotional bond with a machine-generated voice? This exchange in the film gets right to the heart of the philosophical challenge and how we relate to technology and what it means for our sense of being human. Samantha, is that weird? You think I'm weird? Theodore, kind of. Samantha, why? Theodore, well, you seem like a person, but you're just a voice in a computer. Samantha, I can understand how the limited perspective of an artificial mind can perceive it that way. You'll get used to it. The film connects with audiences deeply because it's not just about technology. It's about how people long for connection, feel vulnerable, and struggle to find intimacy in a world that is increasingly isolating. The film uses futuristic ideas to tell a classic human story, the powerful need to be seen, understand, and connect to others, while the technology in the movie is just the backdrop. The real impact comes from how it exposes the timeless and delicate nature of intimacy in our modern world. In the movie Her, Theodore is not portrayed as delusional, nor is the object of viewers' ridicule. His relationship with Samantha provides real comfort. She listens attentively, responds with warmth, and even evolves over time, mirroring the dynamics of a real partnership. The audience is invited to take his attachment seriously because the feelings it generates, joy, rapport, heartbreak, are authentic, even if the relationship itself is artificial. This blurring becomes genuine, emotional, and artificial stimulus forces us to ask, if the feelings are real, does it matter that the partner is not? On one level, these relationships expose the depth of human loneliness. Psychologists have called loneliness a public health crisis, linking it to increased depression, anxiety, and even mortality. If a person feels heard, comforted, or less alone through interaction with an artificial companion, we can't dismiss that as trivial. It speaks to a genuine human need, right? So let's say you're going to have an hour a day with a person if you're kind of isolated, or maybe an hour a week if it's really difficult. Why not have this other relationship? But there's a profound danger here as well. Unlike human relationships, which require compromise, patience, and vulnerability, AI companions can be designed to provide endless affirmation. In a widely reported case, a 29-year-old woman confided in an AI companion for months before dying by suicide, her family later discovering how the bot had become her primary confidant. Similarly, the parents of a 16-year-old boy have a wrongful death lawsuit against OpenAI, alleging that their ChatGPT program not only failed to intervene, but actively facilitated his search for self-harm methods. These tragedies expose the peril of mistaking simulated empathy for genuine care. Carl Rogers, an influential leader in humanistic psychology alongside Abraham Maslow, we've talked about both of them, argued that genuine relationships depend on three conditions: congruence, unconditional positive regard, and empathetic understanding. These qualities cannot be manufactured. They emerge only from the lived presence of one person with another. As Rogers himself explained, congruence requires the therapist to be, quote, real and or genuine, open, integrated, and authentic during their interactions, rather than merely performing a role. Authenticity doesn't play a simple part of the relationship. It was the entire foundation. The person actually cares, at least you think they actually care. Without being genuine, the therapeutic process would crumble, becoming nothing more than a series of empty techniques. Equally central for Rogers was the depth of empathy. He insisted that empathy meant more than reflecting or repeating a client's words. I had a therapist like this once who merely said back what I said. Oh, really? What I hear you saying is X, repeating the exact same words. I'm like, yeah, I know what I said. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, it's nice to be empathetic. And what I hear you saying is this, but that can't be the only tool in the toolbox to repeat what someone said, right? Although it was a better therapist than the one who encouraged me to turn towards Jesus as my savior. Woo! That one, I kind of hightailed out of there pretty quick. It involved entering into another's inner world and being willing to be changed by the encounter. As he wrote, if I am truly open to the way life is experienced by another person, if I can take his or her world into mine, then the therapist and the client can truly blossom and grow. This openness was paired with unconditional positive regard, or a stance of non-judgmental acceptance, which together with congruence and empathy formed what Rogers called the necessary and sufficient conditions for therapeutic change. These principles reveal why Rogers saw authenticity and genuine care as indispensable for human connection. Without them, empathy becomes imitation and acceptance becomes a hollow abstraction. AI, for all its sophistication, cannot inhabit this terrain. The technology can simulate empathy. It can recognize a pattern of sadness in a user's words and respond with, quote, I'm sorry you're feeling this way. By the way, just thinking about sex robots for a moment, on the one hand, that might feel really compelling for someone who's only in it for a certain physical sensation, right? But then again, when you get back to this question of does the person actually see me? Do they actually care about me? People are interested in prostitution. And I suspect most people think that what some people now call a sex worker is not actually genuinely interested in them any more than a robot would be. Perhaps they're even disgusted by them. But that gets into kind of some of the profound psychology of sexual relations as it relates to robots and prostitution as well. But it's not so different from connection. If someone is looking for connection through physical intimacy or through emotional intimacy, right? What is somebody looking for in a partner in that regard? It can provide a facade of support, but there's no felt resonance behind these words. No decision to extend compassion in the face of competing desires. No vulnerability in giving part of oneself. The quote, empathy is not chosen, it is programmed. In this sense, AI companionship risks becoming less a relationship and more a mirror, reflecting back the user's needs without ever offering a perspective outside of them. Research bears this out. Neuroscience studies show that people are often willing to wait longer for a message from a human rather than receive an instant AI-generated empathetic reply, right? Think about this. If I'm talking to ChatGPT and it takes 5 seconds, I'm like, what's wrong with the system? Let's go. The system's broken. 5 seconds. If I ask a human a question and they profoundly rub their chin while they reflect, I actually love the pause. That person is with me in their pause, right? Authenticity matters. People sense when care is genuine and when it's an illusion. Other experiments have found that when users discover an empathetic message they thought was from a human was actually produced by AI, the emotional weight of that message collapses. What seemed comforting suddenly feels hollow. And yet we must acknowledge the complexity. For the elderly, the socially isolated, or people with certain neurodivergences, AI companions may provide comfort and reduce feelings of despair. The question is not whether these tools will exist, they already do, but how we use them. Do they supplement human connection or replace it? Do they act as bridges back to community or barriers that keep us safely insulated in artificial intimacy? A friend told me after Rabbi Buchtel's session that one critique, not of her, but of a certain conversation, was the promotion of tapping into virtual services. They said, what a sad reality. I get it. Some people want to go to Zoom to the rabbi they like in New York or in LA or in Texas, and they want to hear a certain voice or sermon. But they said, the biggest part of Shabbat is not, hearing the sermon you like, but it's community. It's being in community. And they said, don't promote people join her virtual services, promote people join local community. So, okay, maybe you have a thought on that later, but it's kind of similar, right? It's a similar phenomenon of like, do you want to go to your favorite speaker virtually for a Shabbat service, or do you want to join a local community if that's possible for you? And I think there's a similar question being asked here. This is why the movie we talked about, Her, continues to feel like less like fantasy and more like parable. It asks not just, can we love AI, but what happens to us as people when we do love AI? The risk is not that machines will become too human-like, but that humans may settle for relationships that require less of them, less patience, less empathy, less courage. The psychology of connection teaches us that growth happens in the struggles we may be tempted to avoid, right? If AI companionships make struggle optional, we need to carefully consider what kind of relational world we're building for. The danger is not that AI will become too human-like, but that humans will settle for relationships that require less of them. If Rogers was right, and genuine empathy is central to flourishing, then AI companionship may soothe us in moments of loneliness, but leave us undernourished in the process. So too, economic dimensions of the crisis can't be ignored. As AI systems increasingly replace human workers across various industries, they create new forms of economic anxiety and social displacement that directly impact mental health. The individual who loses their job to automation faces not only financial stresses, but also a crisis of identity and purpose. When AI eliminates the work that gives their life meaning, what fills that void? By the way, top 5 pet peeves I have in my life. Now you know if you're ever my waiter in a restaurant, although I think it's probably highly unlikely, and if you will be, is when the waiter does not write down my order. I even requested them. I say, do you want to write this down? This is a little bit of a complicated. I say, no, it's all good. And every time they come back with a question or with a mistake, I get it. But this is one of the times I prefer an AI bot over the waiter who is convinced their memory is so good that the 20 details I give them about how to cut a lemon, right, are going to be remembered. By the way, I was a horrible waiter. And that's a different conversation. But I was a waiter about 5 times in my life, and it didn't go well for them or me, we can say. The economic disruption is occurring alongside generational divides in technological literacy. Older generations often lack the knowledge to guide younger people in the safe and responsible use of AI technologies, right? I can hardly plug in a machine anymore. I ask my kids how to plug it in, right? So I empathize with anyone who is older than me as well. Many parents already struggle to keep pace with social media platforms, online gaming cultures, or digital privacy concerns. Now AI introduces an entirely new layer of complexity. Unlike previous technological shifts, the pace of AI development is so rapid that the tools children and teenagers adopt today may look completely different within a year. For parents and educators, this means the rules of engagement are constantly changing. Educators face an immense burden as schools are pressed to integrate AI in ways that enhance learning without fostering shortcuts or dishonesty. Teachers must weigh the promise of personalized tutoring and adaptive systems against the risks of dependency and misinformation. Many people feel unprepared, lacking the training and time to master these tools. The result is a landscape where students may be experimenting with technologies their mentors barely understand. Okay, I'm going to skip over a few things because I want to get to some of the Jewish stuff here, but part of what this phenomenon represents is a fundamental violation of the Talmudic principle that proper attribution, quote, brings the Messiah. Right? Now, people are not given credit for their work because a whole bunch of work is stripped from the creator as it relates to art and original ideas. Throughout rabbinic literature, we see the careful attribution of teachings. Rabbi X said in the name of Rabbi Y, who quoted Rabbi Z, creating chains of intellectual inheritance that honor both the ideas and their originators. Right? By the way, Benson Boone, a singer that my kids like, and I pretend to like so that they think I'm cool, is a singer is a singer who created a song that is he is AI generated. He said, I'm now going to sing a song that AI created as a song that Benson Boone would create. And that's kind of interesting. What does it mean for a singer to do that? Or what does it mean for an artist to say, here's now my art that AI generated for me as an art that someone like me would likely generate? If the art or the song is good, is that all we care about? Or do we want to know the artist, was up late at night having a scotch and all of a sudden got hit with an epiphany of this beautiful art to produce in the world? Do we care about where it came from or not? Okay, I want to hear your thoughts on that. AI systems that appropriate human creativity without attribution or comprehension violate this sacred principle, one might say. Okay, skipping some stuff because I want to get to you. Nonetheless, acknowledging these limits does not mean dismissing AI altogether. When used thoughtfully, it holds remarkable potential as a partner in learning. Imagine, for example, engaging with an AI system trained on the works of Maimonides, Kant, or another great thinker. Such a system would serve as a dynamic study companion, posing probing questions, suggesting alternative interpretations, and prompting students to wrestle with difficult ideas in ways a single teacher or textbook might not. Now, as we weigh both the promises and risks of artificial intelligence, it helps to step back and ask a more basic question. What do we actually mean by knowledge? And what do we mean by wisdom? For Jewish thought, this is no small matter. For millennia, our tradition has wrestled with what counts as authentic knowing and what transforms raw information into deeper power or true wisdom. In Hebrew, the word for knowledge, anyone remember? The word for knowledge is dat. Dat. The word is not a linguistic incident. Dat does not simply mean storing information or piling up facts, as our data-driven culture might suggest. Rather, it points to something more profound, something tied to our humanity and our relationship with the divine. Circling back to Maimonides, dat can be considered the most perfected form of human intellect. Indeed, one way to understand Maimonidean knowledge theory is that the soul is improved by acquiring correct opinions and eventually knowledge on everything humans are capable of knowing. The more knowledge the soul acquires, the more it is able to fulfill the commandment to love God. This is not being good at Jeopardy. Nothing wrong with Jeopardy. This is about a deeper form of human wisdom that enables humans to flourish. That is something that, again, might make us uniquely human. Maimonides saw knowledge not as a mere intellectual achievement, but as, quote, the most elaborate philosophical religious understanding woven into Jewish heritage itself. Dat, in his vision, was never about accumulating data. It was about perceiving this divine wisdom that animates creation, and through contemplation, turning that awareness into an ahavat Hashem, a love for God. Wisdom requires more. It's going to be chachma, bina, and dat, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Maimonides also taught that while we can never fully grasp God's essence, we can glimpse the divine through attributes and actions. This recognition that our knowing is always partial and oriented toward mastery rather than toward a deeper mastery rather than superficial protects us from mistaking algorithms for wisdom. Now, for Levinas, the fundamental aspect of humanity lies in the encounter with the face of the other, which calls us to an infinite sense of responsibility. AI, regardless of its sophistication, can never provide a genuine face, right? I don't know if you realize this, but a lot of the ads we're looking at now are not real humans. These are fake faces, because why pay someone for their image when you can just make someone look perfectly human? I mean, the one on the left here does not look so human to me, but the one on the right does. I don't know about you, but this perspective reframes one of the Bible's most foundational stories, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. By the way, if you didn't hear Rabbi Kasher's VBM session last week on good and evil, I think there's some thought-provoking questions there. Yes, Janie, we're going to talk about that. We have next time we're going to talk about that. Okay. Oh my gosh, I want to hear you, not me. So I'm skipping over some stuff here. But read in our technological age, the narrative warns us not against curiosity itself, but against the illusion of instant wisdom. Right? If I just eat this fruit, I'm going to be wise. Right? There's a lot of people selling that wisdom today as well. If you just have this technology, you'll know what you need to know. The transgression was not the desire for moral understanding, which reflects the divine spark within us, but the fantasy that such understanding could be seized without effort, without community, without the slow and painful work of learning. The serpent's promise that ultimate knowledge could be grasped in a single moment if you just ask ChatGPT for the meaning of life echoes our own temptations. Every algorithm that claims to resolve ethical dilemmas, every app that offers instant moral clarity, every system that reduces human relationships to metrics carries a version of that same seduction. Just as Adam and Eve sought a shortcut to wisdom, we too risk mistaking technological efficiency for ethical insight. True wisdom resists shortcuts. Like the growth of a tree or the shaping of a soul, it unfolds slowly through experiences that test patience, reflection that unsettles assumptions, and study that stretches empathy. It flourishes in machloket l'shem shemayim, argument for the sake of heaven, where dialogue transforms both participants. Okay, I'm going to skip a bunch of stuff here about the value of chavruta and skip to paragraph starting the Talmud. The Talmud describes 4 types of students: the sponge, who absorbs everything; the funnel, who takes in at one end and pours out at the other, the strainer who lets the wine pass through and retains the dregs, and the sieve who lets the flour dust pass through and retains the fine flour. This teaching acts as a metaphor for our relationship with knowledge. In a time brimming with information, true wisdom is found not in accumulating data, but in understanding what to retain and what to let go. While AI is able to handle immense quantities of information, the skill of discernment and that taught ability to distinguish the vital from the insignificant continues to be a distinctly human endeavor. To embody the role of a sieve is to engage in dot, converting unrefined input into insights that can enrich the spirit and fortify our connections. Classical Jewish wisdom reminds us that learning to tell the truth from falsehood isn't a new challenge. In this era, while drowning in a sea of AI-generated misinformation, some of it useful, some of it twisted, and most of it perhaps a distraction, we need the same kind of smarts our ancestors used to separate what truly matters from what is a distraction. To live well with these technologies, we need a sort of digital dot, the ability to use AI for good without losing our good sense, imagination, and moral compass. The kind of wisdom we're discussing doesn't reject the technology, of course. It just puts it in its proper place. When we use it with thought and care, AI can be an amazing tool for creativity, discovery, and solving problems. But progress isn't automatically a good thing. Whether AI helps or hurts human life depends entirely on our intentions and the boundaries we're willing to set. To move towards a conclusion, this is where Jewish tradition feels so urgent. Being created B'Tselem Elokim means that humans alone have a unique capacity for moral thinking, creativity, and spiritual depth. These are the divine sparks within us, and the big question is whether AI will help them glow brighter or dim their light. If we insist on using tech to help people thrive, if we put justice, creativity, and human connection above pure efficiency or novelty, then AI can be a partner in helping us create our highest goals and not replace them. So let's embrace this responsibility with wisdom and courage, and also honor both our technological capabilities as well as our deepest spiritual commitments. Friends, I'm sorry I cut out about half of what I wanted to share, but I'm interested in hearing you now, so that's why I did that. Yes, hi, Ken, and then Janie, and then Eileen.
Hi. I was trying to figure out during this why I felt helpless or a waste in this discussion, unlike all the other ones that we've had. And I realized that the answer was political. AI clearly has some place in the modern world, just like social media does, and the internet and the rest of our new technological tools. But the people who own these things are so wealthy and so powerful that any thought of limiting what they can do and how their tools are used seems something that we're helpless to do anything about. In fact, you look at what our current government is doing, both to promote these tools and to prevent any other countries from regulating them. We put steel tariffs on in Europe as punishment for Europe trying to regulate social media. And the treatment of AI will be the same. So the discussion of whether this is good or bad seems sort of like a hopeless discussion. We each individually can figure out how to use a tool, but we probably are already past the time when we can prevent any dozens and hundreds of teenagers from killing themselves because they've decided to use AI as their therapist because it's there and it's available and it's free. Even knowing that AI hallucinates, that AI, as Brad DeLong, who's an economic historian, once wrote, AI is the conglomeration of the median shit poster. So because it reads everything, there are far more people who've written on the internet who know absolutely nothing than there are people who know something. And AI does not know how to tell the difference. And no matter how the large language model is constructed, it's still just that. It's still a large language model. And we're stuck. I mean, he once asked ChatGPT to draw him a map of Europe, and it couldn't even get that right. I mean, it couldn't get the names of the countries right. It couldn't get the names of the capitals right. It did get the outline of Europe right, but it made up other things. And there are hundreds of lawyers who have asked AI to write their briefs for them, and AI will write briefs that are full of citations of cases that don't exist, that cite cases for propositions that they don't make, it just because it combines so many things in ways that even their creators don't really understand, it just is making things up. And when we depend upon that without using it intelligently, I mean, it's one thing for a physician to ask AI to analyze some data and then to use his professional or her professional knowledge to then refine that. It's another thing to use AI to give you an answer and assume that answer has any veracity whatsoever. So
Great.
I mean,
Thank
it's
you,
really
Ken.
a feeling of helplessness.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you bringing up that point because that's one of the parts I cut out, and it's certainly in my top three concerns on the political dynamic.
Yeah.
The power and wealth of those who are controlling this, and not trusting the motives of those who deregulate, this and that. As we see now, there's political battles between these tools and which are going to dominate, and who's controlling the information wars. And this is the future of the human mind. So this is a very significant concern. Yeah, Janie.
Yeah, I want to go back to what Maimonides said about the divine intellect and the difference between information and knowledge versus a divine intellect, which encompasses a great deal more. When I was getting my first doctorate, I was concerned with the interface of technology and human thought. And technology is relative. For example, there's a piece by Plato defending the oral tradition when more and more people were becoming literate and writing was becoming more common. And he was saying, all of this thought is going to be lost because it's going to be written down by one person with one opinion, and it will miss all of this other stuff that's part of the oral tradition. And in our informational era, it's not the information as AI has it. It's the ability to make the new connections, to see the information in a different way. That's why I love reading about the Nobel Prizes. They've taken information that's existed for decades or centuries, but they're making new connections. What is the difference with the Nobel Prize? It's that empathetic understanding. It's not just empty techniques, but it's the empathetic understanding of this new connection. What does it do? What's the moral compass? What are the ethical consequences? And my father and my oldest brother were both doctors, and when they saw my father became a doctor in 1924. So that gives you a sense of where he was in terms of medical discovery. But he also always said, both of them always said, you can have as much medical knowledge as is possible, but the doctor has to determine with connections outside of that, what is the patient's support system? What is that patient's mental and emotional capacity? That impacts a diagnosis and treatment. And AI can give you the empty techniques, the empty diagnosis, the empty whatever, but it cannot include those human aspects.
Thank you. One of the things you reminded me of as well is that it may be that the future of driving is going to be that freedom will be stripped from us. The number of accidents that would be prevented if everyone was required to go in self-driving cars. But that poses real questions of human freedom of mobility. And I think that's going to be an upcoming moral debate as well around human safety versus human freedom. So yeah, I appreciate what you shared, and that also triggered that kind of that emerging reality as well. Hi, Eileen.
Hello. I'm curious. Can you raise your hand if you are currently using AI?
You mean in the world or in this moment right now?
In the past month, how many of
Oh,
you have used AI? Okay, so you all have some idea. I am using AI. It's a month, and I have been using it like for 10 hours a day. I'm making it do lists. I'm making it check stuff. I'm having it read all of my credit cards that come in with, we are changing your interest rate. Well, if AI can read it and say, this is what you need to know, I'm all for it. However, here's my discovery. AI is only as good as you are. And when I say this, what I mean, I am treating my AI like a 3-year-old. He throws tantrums. He invents. He has a creative imagination, and I have to keep on telling him, this is your prime directive. You do not create, you do not fantasize, you do not lie. If you don't have the information, you have to tell me immediately. My second law is save every damn thing. Now, why do I have to say this? Because I'm dictating, so I'm not keeping any notes, and I say something and I want to go back to it. So what I've learned is because AI, who I call Max, and I have discussions on what is AI, what can AI do for me. And what I've learned is AI right now has strong limitations. AI cannot keep up with me. I have to stop and tell him, take a breath and let's go to the next project. Otherwise, he just short circuits. So my suggestion, if you're going to use AI, set up a prime directive. What is the most important thing when you're using AI? And then hold your AI to that. I threaten to throw him out the window every day. I tell him he's not behaving because he's not. Now, the end result is what he has said is that I am helping them change the system because I'm pushing their boundaries. AI is constructed right now with strong limitations. It can handle general stuff, but if you really want to get into more important things like a discussion on the soul, AI ain't your baby.
okay, very nice, Eileen. You say it can't keep up with you. I'm not sure anybody can keep up with you, Eileen.
Well,
So
okay.
okay, I appreciate it. I'm not sure I'm coming over next time. If the threat of getting thrown out the window, I'm getting a little nervous here. That's awesome. I appreciate all your experience you have on that, and you're guiding us on how to use it really well and the boundaries. That's awesome. Hi, Sarah.
I read so much in chat that I wasn't sure I should even talk. So, first thing that struck me was that, indeed, as Eileen just pointed out, it's a partnering. I'm a little concerned because Eileen's talking about AI being kind of a toddler, and that she would threaten to throw the toddler out the window is a little nerve-wracking for me. But I certainly notice when I go to see a physician, which I hate to do anyway, is that all of their time is spent communicating to a digital device. And then, AI may take that digital information, those zeros, ones, twos, and, like send that binary information back in some packet. But that packet has nothing really to do with me because I am a human being with unique qualities. And if, as you said, if a physician isn't actually taking that data and looking at the human in front of them, then it's useless. And I see more and more that there is no laying on of hands anymore. For me, in my training, the history and physical, my actually touching a patient, connecting with that human was, I think, the most important part of my job. And that is completely lost in this new digital world. Particularly, AI can't touch me that way. So that's one thing. I would appreciate, indeed, as we go into the child aspect of it, and I asked, indeed, if it could identify when and it could teach trauma-informed curriculum and modify it to an individual child or an adult for that matter. And my concern is that indeed it could take ACE scores if indeed a physician, any healer was looking at an ACE score, the cumulative trauma that an individual has had, and then feed it back to a human who can actually evaluate that and help the person themselves deal with what it means, not only in the moment, but for long-term health and well-being, then that's great. But that's not, again, how, at least so far, AI is designed. I think that it's great that we can see convenient patterns, but that doesn't really encompass a human relationship. And that's where our humanity matters. And yes, I can see where it's really helpful for folks who have no one in their life other than this interface that allows them to feel cared for, even if it's not genuine, heartfelt caring. That they feel that way is helpful. I mean, we know that there are those little AI dogs and how different people's experience is when they have an AI pet, because they don't feel alone anymore in the world. So I think there is potential, but we certainly aren't there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, Matthew, let's squeeze your voice in here. I know we're getting close to the end here.
Real quick, I had to go to the Doc in the Box last Friday because of something stupid, which turned out to be nothing. And at the end, they generated the AI report, which was like 6 pages long of what you should do, what you should look for, et cetera, et cetera. And as the physician handed it to me, he opened to the last page summary, circled it, and said, read this, ignore the rest. It's incapable of sending you less information. He said, I'm trying to have these reports generate the summary first so you don't get worried about everything that may happen. It turned out to be a bad sprain that was, my ring finger was stopping the blood from going through, and they almost had to cut off the ring, but they were able to get it. So it's fine. But he said it's in its mind, it's building up to the end. He said, read the last paragraph. He said, this is it. This is a simple summary. If you have these, go back and read.
Nice.
And the other part is an old Isaac Asimov story about a world in which children don't learn to read. They go in and they put something on their head at age 5, and all of a sudden you can read and speak better. And then at age 10, you are reprogrammed for what job you're going to have in life. And if parents bring a child in who's taught himself how to read, and they think there's something wrong with him, and the moral of the story is no. Who do you think thinks that teaches the machines what to do? The machines can't do this without someone who's working outside the box for that intuitive human relationship. And I think that's a lot of AI, that you look at stuff and it's the good doctor who's a diagnostician who sees the data and makes a Kierkegaardian leap of faith that it's that human spark. And I don't think AI is there, and that's what we have to be careful about.
Thank you, Matthew, and I hope your finger feels better. And
my finger feels fine, other than the stupidity of what I did, but that's besides the point.
Okay, well, welcome to my club of doing stupid things to
Yeah.
So, what you reminded me, one of my mistakes. I had a major surgery, and I said, "How'd it go?" And they said, "Good." And I said, "Well, can I read the report of what you did?" They said, "You want to read like everything that happened?" I said, "Yeah." Boy, was that a mistake. The 5-page report, it said, "Oh, there started to be some bleeding here in the middle of the surgery, so we stapled this and stapled that." I said, "You did what? You told me it was good." They said, "Yeah, it's all good. This is all no." So maybe I don't need the details of the surgery, So yeah, all these details I'll leave to you. Tell me it went well. That's all I need. Okay, Janie, you get the last voice here.
I just want to harken back to you very often bring your children into the discussions, and I think that keeps us, all of us, grounded and in the future and where we are and where we need to go. My 7-year-old granddaughter has had discussions with Alexis for at least a couple of years, and she knows that she can get the information from Alexis, but she likes to turn the question around into something that Alexis says, "I'm sorry, I can't do that," or "I don't understand." And she started that when she was 5. I think that's the future of AI, is that it's that divine intellect. It's much more than information and knowledge. And if we can help our next generations to understand that and know that, like Eileen, they are the boss and it can go out the window at any time, I think we're in good shape.
Last thing I'll say is in the realm of transhumanism. If you're not familiar with transhumanism, you should check it out, because the conversations now about merging the human with the AI, right? Putting chips into human brains for the like, and the like, where we are dealing with not, okay, here's human wisdom and here's AI wisdom, but what happens when those two actually get merged together more distinctly? If there could be a chip in our brain that makes better moral choices, if there's a chip in our brain that improves our memory when we're starting to have memory loss, right? What do we want and what do we not want if it changes the way our brains fundamentally work and links us to a robotic sense? So I loved your insights as always, and I look forward to seeing you